Greetings and welcome back to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. Percussive maintenance is back, and I'm your Captain Myrriah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
It's your friendly neighborhood diviner, Paul Satachet. What
Paul C. Touchett, and Clyde is making
caught
his
in a
way.
temporal anomaly apparently,
He
and
is in
like
a
his
he
phase
is indeed.
discriminator is not phasing or discriminating. So he's working on it.
He's getting there. He's getting there. But alas, we are here tonight, and we will be a full crew as soon as Clyde gets his microphone working, so that he may also interact with us. But tonight we are discussing the first 4 episodes of the second season of Star Trek Prodigy. So we are diving straight on into this show. I'm excited to get back with these characters. But first, before we get in there, Paul, how can people find us, share the show, tell their other friends who might be starting Prodigy if they want a place to come hang out?
Oh, so would you like me to remind the listeners to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube? All links at StarTrekPod.co. Is that what you want?
Indeed, that would
Oh,
be great.
maybe I should at the same time remind them if they love our content, or even if they don't, if they hate our content but want more stuff to hate, perhaps consider joining our Patreon for just $2 per episode at patreon.com/Star Trek Pod.
You can do all those things. And tonight, if you are hanging out with us in the live stream, you can tell us what you think. I'm going to have Clyde explain that. But also, if you join the Patreon, you can let us know what you think anytime. We have messages from the menagerie. So if you aren't able to join us for live streams, we can read your thoughts and opinions there here on the podcast. But Clyde, are you back?
We shall see.
Oh, it's definitely coming through your headphones.
Well, that's okay. Apparently,
But
we have Lynn is back from Melbourne, Australia,
welcome
and
back, Lynn.
no matter how wide or how far I roam, I still call Australia home.
That's another fun Paul fact. If no one knew, Paul used to live in Australia.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I keep trying to mention it every
Every podcast. Every podcast. Paul, test, test.
hello, that's me.
Hello?
Still coming through your headphones, my friend.
But am I okay?
Yeah, you're good, Paul.
Okay.
What part of Australia did you live in, Paul, while we were getting Clyde's technical difficulties figured out here?
I used to live in Alice Springs.
Hmm.
For those who are geographically challenged, Alice Springs is in the geographic center of Australia.
Oh,
So, as the motto of the town was, every breeze is a sea breeze.
but you're in the middle.
Yeah, so any breeze in what direction, you're in the center. It's a
Oh,
sea breeze. So there you go.
interesting. Lynn is in the future. It's 1 p.m. on a Friday. How's Friday going, Lynn? Let us know.
That's right.
How's it going on that side of the day?
Is it going to be okay?
Um,
Is there anything we need to look out for?
but yeah, let us know. But while Clyde is continuing to fix the microphone, you can leave us a message in the chat if you have what we like to call hot freaks, if you will. A little HF, you can put it in the chat. Tell us what your thoughts, feelings were about these first 4 episodes, what you want us to know. Also, if you have a question that you would like us to answer or just some ponderings that you want us to pay attention to, all you got to do is type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in all caps in the chat, and we will take a look. Clyde, poor Clyde, stuck in the temporal anomaly. We will
That's right.
get it fixed. But whilst we wait, I think it's time for a classic for us to maybe see a what video I gotta pick? This one.
Hot freaks!
It's time for some hot breaks. Paul, what did
That's
you?
me.
That's you.
It's
We're
me.
talking.
Hi.
We're hanging
Hi.
out. It's a good time.
Yep.
What did you think about the first 4 episodes of Prodigy?
Like, I don't want, for those who haven't seen it, or whatever, like, I'm gonna say I'm loving it. I think, like, as it's a very sophisticated cartoon. I don't know if like a 5-year-old would be able to get everything. I don't know if a 50-year-old will be able to get everything. But like it is like I go like, oh, I'm really. There is no point of part of it where I go like, oh, this is a chore. I'm going like I'm enjoying it as much as I enjoy Lower Decks. Now it does feel a little serialized as opposed to episodic,
Mhm.
and you could make the argument that it feels a little more Star Wars-y than Star
Mm.
Trek. But with that said, I'm digging it. But
Clyde, have you returned from the temporal anomaly?
Probably not. I'm probably still stuck in
that's okay.
the
Okay,
wormhole.
like it's okay. We can sound like you're in a well. It's totally fine.
Yeah, it's gonna be okay. We'll see what we can do. You're
Yeah.
calling us from the other side, if you will.
You're
I
calling
feel
it
like
through the wormhole.
I'm trapped with Gwen, and I'm not sure how that happened. Heard nothing.
Yeah, it's okay. Just to play a little bit of tech for you, Clyde. Are you
Hi,
on a
Clyde.
Mac? Bye, Clyde. You're not on a Mac. Okay, I can't help you, my friend. I'm so sorry. You can
Myrriah,
always.
what did you think?
What did I think? I know we can hear him, but it does sound like he's in a well. But we're gonna try for better audio quality if we can, while Clyde works on that. I agree with you. I think it's a super fun series. I am often like, wow, they pack so much in each episode.
30 minutes.
30, like so much in those like 26-minute
Yeah.
episodes. Again, I think the animation is really beautiful and like interesting. I'm excited for this crew to be back together, but I'm glad they're kind of separating folks out a little bit to have these sort of mini side quests to sort of figure out
Sure.
what they're capable of, I think, outside of the group, which I've been really appreciating. So yeah, overall, I'm digging it. I'm having a good time. There's lots of good lore. People die and get injured in this children's show, which is also wild. Clyde,
Can you hear me now?
well, it's still your headphones, but it's okay. We'll just let it ride. It'll be okay. Don't worry about it.
Clyde,
Just let it roll. Just let it roll, my friend. Oh, well, actually, now that you did that, it might just be your microphone is slowly dying, my friend. Do you want to just do your computer mic?
Is there any chance you can hear me now?
We can hear you. Yeah, it just sounds like you're on the phone. Oh, but
you can't hear us.
Oh, that's a problem. Okay.
Uh-oh. Like, it could be that there is a construct in our works, and like, it's really trying to take over our podcast. I don't know. And I know Clyde, if you can't see us, you're just listening, Clyde is looking very frustrated, which on one hand is frustrating. On the other hand is hilarious.
Well then just I'm gonna type to you, Clyde. Just put in headphones and we deal with bad audio. And it's fine because we can still hear you.
This is what live broadcasting is.
Live broadcast.
It's like
Welcome.
improv. Yes, and
we're yes-anding. We're gonna try to dive in here, but why don't we go ahead and we'll read and start talking about episode 1.
Sure.
So we have Into the Breach parts 1 and 2, which were written and directed by Ben Hibben, Kevin and Dan Hegeman, Andrew L. Schmidt, and Patrick Krebs, as well as written by Aaron J. Waltke. We kind of jump right back in. The crew is hanging out at Starfleet, but they're kind of figuring out where they fit in, and it feels like everyone but Doll is really having a good time. Time of their lives. If you were to pick from our core crew, our Doll, Rock Talk, Jacob Pog, Murph, or Zero, who do you think you'd be the most like at Starfleet Academy?
Oh no,
Rock.
This is not the game we play. The game we play hurts feelings. Like, who would you think the other person would be more like?
Oh, okay. So name the other person. Who am I, Paul? Who am I?
Myrriah. Who is Myrriah? I feel like Myrriah is Gwen. That's my.
That works. That tracks.
Because Myrriah and Gwen have level heads, and they have thinly veiled anger issues. And but more often than not, like, they are the compass of the group.
I feel like you're like an interesting mixture of Zero and Jenkum for me, Paul.
Zero and
definitely-
Jenkum, that's great.
Yeah.
I was
that's
definitely
quite
thinking Jenkum for sure for Paul.
that's quite a range.
Yeah, because I think it depends on the day. I feel like we've had very insightful, deep conversations a la Zero, but then I've also seen, us have to
Jenkum.
fix something in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I take it all. I take it all. And for Clyde, I think Clyde's rock. I mean, like, I think your assessment is correct, Clyde.
I love the by the book. Like, happy to be here. Like, even though my audio's terrible, I'm happy to be here. I want things to work out.
Yeah.
And I'm like a big child.
Yeah, no. I think, it's really funny because, like, when you first see Rock in, the earlier episodes, you do think that Rock is like this monster because Rock looks like a monster. But then you put the voice on, and then, that you see it's just a kid. Now I can only see Rock as a kid.
Yeah. It's like she has the cutest little
Uh-huh.
face once you're like in there.
Well, yeah, once you see the voice, yeah, no. So I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. We also have kind of our alts this season in the Nova Squadron. Would you rather be a part of Nova Squadron or our little janky crew?
Definitely the janky crew.
Oh, he's back.
You sound good now.
That's right.
Really?
Your scrivener has saved.
I messed with some settings. I think I fixed it.
Thank you. Thanks,
You're
Myrriah.
welcome.
I do appreciate that. I like our crew. I think they're traditional Trek, right? In the fact that, like, it's a motley crew of misfits who ultimately have skills that are going to save the day. So I'm going to rock with them. I didn't get a chance to really get a hot freight, but I think this episode kind of sums up kind of some of my thoughts on the show. I'm not sure what Prodigy is and who the audience is, right? Like, it's got a little bit of dynamic for children where they still make choices where I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that is just like, you're being kind of goofy. It's the typical, like, we're not going to tell the parents and we're going to just do this thing even though we're not supposed to. It's that typical stuff. But I think that children's programming has evolved a little bit, where when I think about something like Bluey, which is hilarious and entertaining and sometimes heart-wrenching, they found this happy medium where they're it's silly, but they're treating kids a little bit more as mature thinkers, and parents love it. And so I'm trying to figure out where Prodigy is, like, who is it for? Because, Paul, to your point, I'm not sure it's meant for a 11-year-old, right? I don't know if it is.
I actually think it is 11 specifically, because to me it's that, like, you're starting to watch slightly more adult content, or like mature content, like where like the themes get maybe a little bit heavier. But I also am probably a strange person who watched like horror movies from childhood up. So but yeah, because
my 12-year-old has no interest in it, and it breaks my heart every time. But she's got no interest in it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, but I like our crew. I like our crew a lot.
Well, so when I was a kid, like back in, like we had just invented fire, and but they also had a show, an anime show called Robotech on, and Robotech is great. It's like, like, I know a lot of kids today that they're all anime positive and, blah blah, and I applaud that. But Robotech was the jam. Anyway, people die in Robotech. A lot of things, like, it's very
It's
adult.
centered in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
Like, and not like it's like a real war. Yes.
Yeah. And so in that way, I think I kept up, or at least I caught what I caught. and
Mhm.
enough to keep. So I would say to that, like, I think there will be kids who watch it, and if they're interested in the adventure, they'd watch it, and they'll take it for that. They'll miss a lot of references. They'll miss but it all doesn't matter, because like you get what you get, and like if it's confusing, then you'll stop watching. But if it's not confusing, you'll continue to watch if you like it.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if it's so much that it's confusing, as much as it's, are they interested in it? Like, is
mhm.
it speaking to them, right? Are
so
the characters such that they're like, oh, I like these characters?
I mean, I
so
feel like the characters are very written for kids, and the plot lines are a little bit more sophisticated,
mhm.
which
Hmm.
I feel like gets pretty well distributed out, especially in this episode, because you do get that, like, oh, do you identify with Doll, who's like, I really don't want to do homework. I just want to rush to the finish
Mhm.
line. And then you have the folks who are like finding and really excelling in the spaces that really fit their passions, like Jankum or Rock Talk, who are like so excited to be in engineering and in science. And, when we get them onto Voyager, when they each get their assignments, also love Sectarian ops, having whales on
Sure.
the ship. Um, Super funny. But you kind of get to see that, I think, full range of like our character archetypes, right, that we have for the show. And I think it allows kids to imprint on whomever is kind of their version that they see themselves in.
To see that.
Well, but to your point, Clyde, like I will say that, like, let's take anime Robotech in particular, for example. Like, it's designed for adults, and it was up to me as a kid to keep up. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of shows, I think a lot of
I mean, a lot of adult shows really spoon feed us plot,
Uh-huh.
I understand, but like, but like for all of it, like kids will be aspirational. So they will watch up. They don't necessarily watch down. And I will say that the plotting in Prodigy is actually very advanced, I think. But the characters seem a little more Nickelodeon.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And I think like that juxtaposition can be difficult, for people to find their voice and stuff like that. I think it's great. But like there's a difference between Dahl and Boimler, right?
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so Boimler exists naturally in his universe, and Dahl exists in his universe, but like you think that Dahl is very young, the way he sees the world.
Hmm.
Anyway, but like
No, I like that, Paul. I like that because I think you're hitting it, and that might be the thing I'm feeling and I'm
mhm,
brushing up against,
mhm,
is that it's interesting because it's when you think about and you say like the plot is very advanced. It's not very, I don't know that it's very advanced emotionally, right?
no,
Like I've
no,
seen some
sure,
things, some stuff that my kids watch, and I look at that and go, man, some of this stuff is pretty like emotionally advanced, and they're, some of it's going over their heads and some of they're keeping up with it. The science,
sure,
right, in Prodigy is advanced, right? Like like, and some of the dialogue, they're talking about like temporal shields, and they say things like temporal mechanics one-on-one 1,000 times. And so I think it can be a little bit advanced, but you're right, the characters aren't quite as advanced. And I think
but they're kids.
I think Doll in particular is probably where I'm struggling the
And,
most, because
and
I'm expecting him to be just a slightly bit more mature.
yeah, for your answer, whether it be what was it called, Nova Squadron, or
Hmm.
like
Mhm.
like for all of it, like being on Dahl's team would drive me nuts. It would drive me nuts, not because like I don't shoot from the hip. I can Captain Kirk with the best of them.
Hmm.
But you're
but
just like, give me the structure of Majal's Nova Squadron.
it's like, but like Dahl is reckless, in reckless in a way that is uh young. Like you can be
Yes.
mature and reckless, but but you're childlike and reckless and in charge of a ship. Like I don't know why anyone turns to Dahl. Like, why
I don't
would
know if I feel like Dahl is right now the heart of the crew rather
love
than
Mhm.
the
it? Yeah,
true leader, which I think is a part of his character arc that we'll hopefully see play out over the season.
sure.
Um, but I wanted to get into, obviously, I think the one of the most mature characters we have is of Gwen, who is taking this huge task on
Sure.
to literally try to save her entire
Sure.
people.
Yeah. Misgenerational trauma. She's
Yeah.
doing it.
She's doing it. She's trying to make it happen. And then we have, her foil with Essentia, which is so funny to me that is voiced by Jamila Jamil.
It-
um
Perfect. Mwah, chef's kiss.
yeah, she's doing a great job. But I just have to say the world building of Solemn, I think is so cool this
It's
season.
awesome.
Agreed.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It looks incredible. I love the like elders with the face masks and like
Mhm.
the like all of the intricacies and like the way that her like what is the tool? I'm blanking on what they call their
Heirloom.
tools.
Heirloom.
The heirlooms, like I love the way the heirlooms function. I just think it's so cool and like such a
Sure.
neat world building happening this season.
It's a cross between like Lord of the Rings and Lady Gaga.
Very that actually.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like
That's a
very
pretty
accurate.
spot on read. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like getting to see Gwen kind of reconnect with her father in a way
Sure.
that
Yeah.
I think is probably very healing in some ways to see
Yeah.
like
No.
the humanity of this guy before he really got turned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It is an incredible place to be. Like, I think when I think about, okay, what parts of the show draw me in, I definitely am paying more attention to when it's Gwen and Solemn
Sure.
and the things that
Yeah.
she's doing. Like, I'm like, okay, great, right? And I think the other parts of the show is much more. There's some inside jokes that I definitely think are for us adults,
Yeah.
right? Like
Everything with the
Jeffrey
doctor and Chakotay and the Jeffries tubes.
and the
yeah.
Jeffrey tubes, yeah, like that's all for us. And I'm like, it's funny, like the fact that Jeffrey tubes go everywhere, like that's hilarious. But that connection between Gwen and her father is like that's the emotional capital that I'm like, you've got something here. Like, especially if you've seen the first season and you see, like, there becomes this question in your mind that how did he get from there to the diviner, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's the Darth Vader question, right? It is, how did Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader? Not to mix my sci-fi series franchises,
We
but
do it all the time.
but I think that's what you're looking at, and it just draws you in. And on top of that, the world building, the design, the kind of the mythos of the entire, I don't know, just their heritage and their people. It's like,
Mhm.
show me more. Okay, what is this? Oh, there's a new trio. Gotta see it. Like, want to know more about it. It's pretty
Yeah.
fascinating.
I wanna jump into Who Saves the Saviors, which was directed by Sun Shin and written by Aaron McNamara. This is where we get like Gwen challenging Essentia to that duel, which I thought was so fun to watch. And some really, I think, smart and interesting and different battle, like the way that they animated and came up with the sequence of that particular fight, I thought was just so captivating and interesting.
Totes. Yeah. Like what I really like is like you go down, the pit, and you see all the hieroglyphics and the artwork, and you go like, oh, they spent a lot of time. Like you can see that they spent a lot of time coming up with the world.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time going like, oh, this is going to be worthwhile, so that like you don't look at the planet as like, oh, here's this backwater, angry militant
Mhm.
mob. You see it like, oh, this place had its own culture,
Mhm.
and you could see why people would want to destroy the Federation to protect it.
Right. They're like, we have a deep uh connection to our history, and like, you know, to the point when I'm going to just call them the elders, like the people at the council chamber were, you know, like, who are we if we do not honor our history? Which I thought was really interesting. And I think I have a feeling would maybe come back in some point because it felt very pointed. And then, you know, on the flip side, we have Dahl, Jankum, and Zero, as well as Majel, who are captured by the Diviners kind of crew of people and are held up with old Chakotay and our first officer. How are we feeling about having Chakotay in this? Essentially, we're having Voyager 2.0.
So I will say a couple things when I watched this. So in the first episode, when they were like, "Oh, we're heading to the ship and it's Voyager," I immediately thought, I wish I was in the room when that was revealed to Myrriah. So I imagine that she was just going nuts, and I was like, "So Voyager is going to be the center of the second season. Myrriah has to love that." And then when I realized that, wow, Chakotay's back. That is an interesting decision. And then I was trying to figure out if I was thinking about, all right, so when we start the show, do I make a flux capacitor reference, or do I start the show with the bird pun?
I mean, the bird puns were, you know, riding high for me.
Yeah, and so I think I landed on a bird pun, but I can't now, with all the technical issues, I can't remember what the bird pun I was going to use. But I thought I'm mixed on Chakotay. Like, they set it up for him to be a character, so I don't think anybody's surprised. I'm trying to figure out where this is going and if we needed it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling he's going to be a pretty big part of the season. I haven't, to like someone asked in the chat, I haven't watched past 4, so I do not know what happens.
Neither have I.
Because I am bad at keeping story points together.
So am I. Paul, I imagine, has been the entire second season.
No, I want to be with you guys. Like, you know, I want to be in the dark. You know, I want to explore, you know, the universe,
theories and the reaches.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I am of course excited to revisit so many characters that I know and love from Voyager. I have like a, you know, like a personal mixed feeling about Robert Beltran being back. But, you know, I'm trying to just enjoy the story and the creators that are telling me the story, and trusting them, because so far they haven't led me wrong, and I've really enjoyed Prodigy. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. I do find, oh, is this the no, never mind. I was like, I'm gonna jump ahead if I get to the 4th episode, but I am very interested at this sort of extra being that they're setting up, because we've essentially had a couple of mysteries drop at this point. We've got the orb that comes and talks to Janeway, and then we have this kind of figure that comes to Gwen as she is starting to kind of phase in and out because of the timeline discrepancy, because of the weapon that was left, which you know, to me, I'm interested in figuring out, because I guess the space that I'm a little confused is why in the first instance Chakotay let the ship go without him, versus this time he gets on the ship. Because was it just like he was able to provide coverage and essentially make it to the entrance? Is that like the only big difference?
I believe
That
so.
was- Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, because Dahl left his gun once again. Dahl,
right? Yeah. But I'm like, what really changed? But just like the gun, I guess, is what gave him the ability to get onto the ship, rather than like
it
being
looked
cornered.
like it, like yeah, basically he was being shot at, and like he just like, I gotta launch this now, versus like I can make it to the cockpit.
It also, I also wondered, like, was it? I guess I was looking, going, okay, we can't leave, you know, the bird XO, you know, number one bird, can't leave him behind. So with the gun, it allowed him to bring him. And then the other thought was, well, maybe it was either to send the ship, but in order to pilot it, he couldn't pilot the ship by himself. Like, maybe he needed one other person.
Oh, did they say something about that?
Yeah, and so because when they got on the ship, it's not like hurt or not, Bird Guy was
Yeah, no,
pressing buttons.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like Janeway show, like like when they did the back footage, did she say something about? Was there
Well,
something in there?
I think he was injured, and then I think because yeah, I mean, essentially, it's like he didn't have a way to defend himself, and it ends with him, like hands
Mhm.
up, because he
Y-
doesn't have a way to
Yeah,
do anything, and
yeah,
wasn't going to leave his first officer.
yeah. Well, I totally bought it. Like as I was watching the show, I was going like, oh, it'd be very interesting if like they changed the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
and then they did. I go like,
They did.
well, that's I can see how there are 17 more episodes or whatever more episodes
Yeah,
because that's a mess. That's a
yeah.
spaghettios.
Now they got a big oops at spaghettios. I did want to talk about, I thought it was so funny to me, this is when I see like the kidsness of the show is like when Jankum like hacks into his own hand and
Hmm.
like
Yep.
the thing from the Addams family
Yeah.
thing like
Yeah. Yep. Mhm.
crawls around and gets them out. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, I think for me also, I keep looking and going. It, I- it made me wonder if when I guess it was what Robert Zemeckis when they created Back to the Future, if
Mhm.
they really understood that they were recreating the template that everyone was going to use for timey-wimey stuff from here on out. Because there were so many elements that I was thinking, oh, yeah, that's kind of this is what's going to happen. Of course, they're going to leave something, they're going to change something. And what happens when they do? Gwen starts fading in and out, kind of like Michael J. Fox playing the guitar.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that is like a funny visual reference that's now been like so cemented in media. But I was like, I thought you were just going general, like how we approach the idea of time travel. And I was like, technically, you go all the way back to like A Christmas Carol, where you have to like travel to see your life in order to make changes. So like we've been time traveling for a long time in media.
Yes, we have.
Um, which, speaking of, we have to talk about Temporal Mechanics 101, which was directed by Ben Hibben and written by Keith Sweet II. Um, I want to just dive right into our friend of the pod, Dr. Aaron, has a whole fun little featurette explaining time travel, and I thought it was adorable and super fun.
Yeah. I thought it was great. I thought it was quite irresponsible of her to like show freshman kids in Starfleet how to make a time machine.
Well, I mean,
Eh,
granted, he did skip quite a few chapters and went right to the time
but
machine.
at what point do you go, well, you really shouldn't make a time machine, but if you had to, here's how you do it.
Yeah, classic.
I
They're
thought
gonna
it was
figure it out
amazing.
anyway.
Yeah.
I thought it was so fun.
Yeah.
It was really great. And we do have yet again another strange message kind of received from this exterior operator
Mhm.
asking to save Gwen. I have a Myrriah theory to
I'm
toss
right there.
out.
Oh, we need
I've
we
been
need a
I've
video for
been
that.
I've been waiting for this for like 3 hours,
I
Myrriah.
was
I was
like,
like, I
let me
cannot
see
wait
if
to get
there's
this
a
theory.
I was like, is there a banner? I
Nope.
was like, I
Uh,
used to have one. I have a She Was Right.
do you have a she's Let's see it. Let's see if she is right.
Oh, Shaw was right, not She Was
Shaw
Right.
was right. Oh man, see,
Classic.
no, nope.
Well, first, it obviously is Peanut Hamper coming in and
Oh, ow,
Hang on.
ow. Tina Hamper is the constant in all timelines. She is the
I
one
got
domino.
I got this one.
Ow.
All right, was that your prediction that it's Peanut
no,
Hamper?
not
Oh, I was about.
actually.
I was
I
like,
just
okay.
saw the Peanut Hamper thing and went, "Oh, I have to say Peanut Hamper first." No, I think it is the diviner. I think it is like alternate timeline diviner trying to break through.
See, I'm wondering if it's Doll from like the future, or
Oh.
I'm wondering if it's Chakotay.
But it was like kind of like it looked like a figure from Solemn. Didn't it look like a Solemn, like a person from Solemn?
You know what it really looked like? It looked like
Like Peanut Hamper.
thank you, thank you. That'll be all, everyone. It looked like for a deep cut, like it looked like the gray guys in Enterprise. Where like They're the temporal people who can talk to people back in time.
Whoa.
So that's what it looked like to me. And I don't think it is, because like I don't think Prodigy is going to reference.
I wouldn't put it past them.
I don't know. It's a long way getting from here to there.
I mean,
thank you, Clyde. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. It was seamless, but you caught it. Like
it was nice. That was well done, Paul. I did not see it coming, and you right in there.
It was phaser set to Clyde.
Yes. I was wondering, it would be cool. Talk about deep cuts, and I can't remember their name, but the guy who was outside the door in Discovery, I forget the episode that referenced.
Outside the door. The what you call it? The Guardian of the Edge of Tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, Edge of Tomorrow.
Guardians.
Yep. Yeah,
that would be a cool tie-in.
That would be a cool tie-in.
I mean, I know who it is. My theory, it's future Merv.
Future Merv.
I thought about that too, because Merv was. I think we're skipping ahead, but yes, I thought about that too. That was
when Merv is talking to that being on the deck. Yeah, that's very interesting. I know we didn't get a lot of Murph these first couple episodes. We really just had like
no security issues.
No, we just had drippy Murph when they're like hiding up in the rafters, and then we have Murph here at the end talking to this being.
And that was something I didn't understand when Nova Squad just showed up and they're trying to fight. I was like, but you guys got Murph. Like Murph could take all of them on at one time.
Just
where you guys figure out what you're doing with the ship. Like that wasn't a fair fight at all. But you guys made it fair, and then you end up lost in time. Like
classic timey-wimey.
Mm-hmm.
Classic. The ship is going into the wormhole, and now we have to see what happens. When Gwen hears the voice saying you must stay together, do you think that has to do with the group or has to do with her father?
Ooh, I immediately thought the group. I didn't think her father at all, but now you gave me something to think about.
I don't really think the father either, but like now I still don't think the father.
Or what if it's Essentia?
Like it could be.
No, I'm
or
waiting
just
for her to
people
die.
in general, or maybe it is just talking about like the people of Solomon in general. Like you must stay together.
See, Essentia she's that bad guy that you're thinking, oh man, I am so here for the epic death scene that's coming for her. I can't wait.
Do you think present Essentia will take out future Essentia? Do you think? Because
I like that.
Because at that moment when Essentia comes out, it almost looked like current Essentia was a little like, oh, I didn't want it to be you. Yeah. And it's maybe like, I see how I have become bad.
Yeah, no.
I
think that
I like that.
I like that. Good old Myrriah. Shaw was right.
Shaw was right.
I mean, I had that same thought, Myrriah, but then it was actually a really brief hold on kind of young Essentia, and then it moved into something else that while I had the thought, I then almost got distracted by something else.
Yeah. Chippy asked, what do we think of Majel, our Vulcan kind of Gwen stand-in in the group at the moment? I think she's fun. I think I'm waiting to see what her flaw is that's going to like kind of humanize her, for lack of a better word. But
wow, way to she's a Vulcan.
But you know what I mean?
It's okay to be Vulcan, okay, Myrriah?
Yes, whatever vulcanizes her into being, because they're all young, right? So it's like I know our core group's kind of flaws and places that they're trying to grow, right?
To be fair, young for a Vulcan is probably 50.
True.
Well, I think that
Jenkum Pog is literally voiced by like a 50-year-old man. So.
Yeah. But I think Majel is needed because, to Paul's point, Dahl is really reckless. And I think, I was going to say this earlier, what I'm looking for is I think about Kirk in the Abrams verse and the Kelvin's verse in kind of that first J.J. Abrams movie, where he was a bit reckless, but he was also supremely competent, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, if you asked him any question that was in a Starfleet manual, he could answer it. He just didn't want to, right? Like he thought outside the box, but he was so competent that his recklessness was kind of cool. Dahl is all reckless and not a lot of competence, and that's what I'm struggling with. Whereas Majel comes in and is that, I hate to say it, but she's that Spock to his Kirk, right?
Maybe.
Well, I think they're trying to draw the reference. It's like the headband, I feel like they're definitely nodding in that direction.
Let me put it this way. Let's take the Doll Squad and Nova Squad, and let's say we pick teams. Who picks Doll first? That's right. like Doll has no real purpose other than being like reckless.
Which I hope he grows a bit into something this season, because I think that'll be like a part of his growth, right? And I think they're illustrating it with such a heavy hand at the top, with him essentially trying to skip his way through the fundamentals, which I think inevitably will burn him in some way,
Well,
I like what Myrriah said earlier. I do think he's the heart of this team, and he's courageous. I mean, his recklessness also comes with a bit of courage. Like, if we think about it, if it wasn't for Dahl, nobody's getting in that Jeffries tube, right? He is a leap before you look type of cat, so you kind of need him to push the plot along a little bit. But Paul, you asked a good question. Who's picking him first? I'm not.
Myrriah, are you picking him first?
No, I'm gonna pick Zero.
That's right. That's right.
I'm picking Gwen, but Zero's next. Like,
I think he gets picked last.
I think you're right, because you also said that everybody's got a clear defined role, and Paul, you asked like, what's his, and I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, and I think for all of it, and I don't know if this is good or bad. It's just not my taste. But then again, I'm not 11, so but he's the avatar for the world, right? Like he goes like, oh, he's not particularly good at anything, but he's, except for being picked, he's just in the position. And that's okay. Like, we have tons of stories like that, and that is totally fine. But it does speak a little bit of like, oh, everyone in the world is competent except for you, and we're just waiting for you to get your crap together. Like that, like it rides that line for me a little bit, and and right now it's not crossing that line, and I'm happy to watch it. But like, it's always that bit where I go like, oh, is Dahl going to go just too far, because he's already on the edge of annoying me.
Well, let's ask this.
But I think, go ahead,
Myrriah.
Oh, I mean, I was going to say, I think without Dahl, though, there isn't as much room for growth, and like you need a character that has to have.
I agree.
An arc,
I agree. I don't disagree with that.
And
but
because last season we essentially had the arc for Gwen to be able to break out of the control of her father, of the diviner, and then I think, to me, this season is going to be about Dahl.
And I would ask, do we see leadership qualities, right? Because the idea of what Dahl kind of represents is, I'm going to be a leader who surrounds myself with people who's more talented than I am, and my superpower is bringing them together and giving them direction. And so, if that's what his role is, do we see leadership? Do we see those types of leadership qualities in Dahl? That would be the question.
Do you? I don't know.
I see potential.
I understand, but this is like, isn't this the argument of like, oh, there are tons, like this is the argument against the patriarchy, right? There are a ton of mediocre men who are supported until they're, by a bunch of people, until they are, until they rise to the occasion, or they don't. Like, this is the theory. This is the trope of the 90s movie, right? Here's this guy who is terrible, and at the very end, steps up.
But I think, I mean, to Chupi's point in the chat, she does bring up, I think, a good point. Like they function
Mhm.
as a team, and Dal is the bravery.
Like
Yeah.
like my response is he? I see him jumping into it. Like this is not me crapping
Mhm,
on Dahl. I'm just saying like when I look at the function of a team, like
mhm.
I know Janeway, she's competent, and everyone on the adult side, like from the Andorian to
Mhm.
the other child, they're gonna get the job done. They're
Right.
team players. Dahl is this random person who may have a bit of charisma and may work out in the 1 in 1,000 situation, but like, do you bet on him? Like I like Kirk is the example that Clyde uses, which is a
Mhm.
real good example where Kirk is Dahl plus competence, and
Right.
and for all of it, here's the thing that Kirk worked hard. He didn't have to work that hard because he was really smart, but like there he knew his stuff.
I think we're already starting to see though that progression of like he knows he has to gain the knowledge to get where he wants to go. And
Mhm.
I think the temporal mechanics episode is that like first baby
Mhm.
step.
Sure.
I mean, I agree with you, Paul. Like he has the longest way to go of everyone on our
Sure.
crew, right? But I think like there is that ultimately Dahl symbolizes hope because
Sure.
he was the one who got them all on
He
that ship and
he's
out
like
of the
I don't know. He
Mhm.
he he symbolized the new hope. Like
you
he
could
is.
say that. You could say that. You could say
but
reference to another star show, perhaps.
Yes.
but yes, like I think ultimately what Dahl has that everyone
Ooh.
doesn't is he acts first.
Mhm.
Everyone else is think first. Should we blah blah. Dahl is act first, and I I feel like I understand the value of that as a person. Uh, I feel though like act first without what you call it without wisdom becomes really
A fool's errand, if you will.
a little bit. And so like it isn't like Dahl is being put into situations. Dahl is acting first, getting into situations, and then like lucking out of them because everyone else like does their job. Like
Yeah.
for example, if Jenkins wasn't on the what you call it on the
Infinity.
yeah on the Infinity, what happens?
They die.
They die.
Mhm. But I like what Chupi says in the chat. Yeah, but Dahl is the Kirk in the car and not Kirk at the academy. I agree with that.
Like I 100% Chupi, 100%. You know,
And I also think
I'm
that
James
Myrriah's
Tiberius Kirk.
I also
Cue the
think that
Beastie Boys.
That's right.
I,
Can't
I
stand it.
but I also agree with Myrriah. I think part of the show is, at least this season, is the Dahl journey,
Yep.
right? Like it is he's got this growth path and we're along for it. So if you're trying to figure out, are you in, it's like, well, do you want to see him grow throughout the season? Do you want to see him mature? And that's going to be where some of the conflict, the action is derived from. It's going to move the plot along because we're watching him grow, and it'll be interesting to see. Like he's going to take some steps, some sideways steps and some backward steps, but they've decided that from a plot standpoint, he is going to be the heart of the show.
No, and I get it. I get it.
So,
Like I see it. Why it triggers me a little bit to see. Why is Dahl in charge? Because he wants to be in charge.
But I
mhm.
don't think Dahl is actually in charge.
Who's in
Who's
charge?
I
who's
think
in charge?
Dahl thinks he's in
Sure,
charge, but
sure.
I
Who's the
think
boss?
I don't think there is a boss right now. I think
Well,
they are a collective.
maybe. Like I think yes. I
I
think
mean,
Dahl thinks he's in
I
charge.
think right now Majel is the boss.
Mhm.
I think she's bossing it up. I wanted to ask before we run out of time tonight, but what do you think about the dynamic between the adults on the show and the kids? Because like it is one of the few we don't often, besides Deep Space Nine, really get to see like officers interacting with younger folks and kind of dealing with the repercussions of like young people running amok on a starship or a starbase, right? And so I just think it's interesting to see Janeway, who to me is a little bit more is willing to take chances on people, but is fairly no nonsense, essentially like bringing these kids along. And it does seem that like, oh, I'm going to bring you in so that you can learn and be a part of this. And like, I understand a part of your journey and where I represent it in my hologram form. Right. But, to then see her have to deal with the consequences of bringing these like kiddos who now have gotten lost in a wormhole.
Yeah, no, I mean, you go, Clyde.
Well, I mean, I think I'm still trying to work my way through, like, why did Janeway bring them on? Like, I have a mission for you. Like, what was her original intent? And it's interesting that she seems to, be fond of them, where Thomas Jefferson, David Diggs, Commander Tysius just is like through with them and is ready to like, why, like, just put them in the brig or put them on a starbase somewhere. He's like no tolerance. I'm trying to figure out what that's about, right? Like, you told them that they're special, you invite them onto the ship, and then like you had to like, what's the goal here? I was trying to figure out, like, secretly, were you hoping that Dahl was going to do his Dahl thing and steal the ship so that you couldn't? Like, what was the end game in bringing
well, to be fair, like, to Janeway, and I don't think she needs me to stand up for her, but I feel that if you had something that was going to destroy the Federation, and you had in the form of the construct, and like, and you had to deal with saving your buddy, like, the people who are closest affiliated to this are that she has access to are Dahl and the gang, right? And so if you have this big ship and you're bringing cadets anyway, wouldn't you just want to bring them along just in case? Because you don't exactly know foresee everything, and wouldn't they, if there's a situation that only they could have known about or whatever, like, it's like, you're buying a lotto ticket not because you need to win, but like, the jackpot is really, and it costs you $1. So that's my thought process.
Okay. I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah. To be like, oh, you are connected to this situation in a pretty integral way, so might as well bring you along in case you're needed in some way. Just to
that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, guys.
Well, people don't recognize of my admiral materialness, and I feel bad about that. I feel under-recognized.
I mean, I would pick you first if we were picking teams, Paul. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow, Clyde. That makes me feel really good. Myrriah, would you like?
I'm assuming that Myrriah wasn't available, but yes.
Phaser set the ball. Oh, it burns. It burns.
It burns. Phasers are set to kill on this episode. Anything else about these first 4? I'm excited to keep watching and see where it all pans out.
I was really surprised on how much I enjoyed. Like sometimes Prodigy, like at least season 1, was a chore for me. I gotta get through this, but like with this, like at the end of every episode, like a cliffhanger. Like things were really storyboarded out. Yeah, it was like there was no fat, so much in there. I was very impressed. Very impressed.
I'll agree with Paul. I think in season 1, especially because we were podcasting about it a little bit, some of it was a chore. Some of it was like, oh, I've got to get through this kids show. This didn't quite feel that way, right? Now, again, if you ask me to rank them, I'm not putting this above any of the new shows that we've been covering. But I enjoyed it. I was looking, going, oh, I'm kind of interested in watching episode 5, but I'm gonna wait because I cannot watch episode 5 until we podcast about it, or I will say something I'm not supposed to. But I also thought, like, wow, this story is more nuanced and more interesting than season 1. Like it like I'm looking, going, you canceled this thing before it really found
Give
its
it a chance.
footing.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see if Netflix decides to order an additional season after this one. I do also wonder if it feels like more connective tissue because we are essentially back with the Federation and we are back with like
sure.
at least some background characters that we are more familiar with, right?
I mean, they've got a lot of characters. I mean, you got Janeway, you've got Chakotay, you've got the Doctor.
Yeah.
Like, you've got some characters, and it'll be interesting to see the role that the Doctor plays, kind of going forward.
Well, like to your point, like right now, assuming that it stays at this quality, because you never know. You never know where things will go. But like if it stays at this quality, I'm enjoying it more than season 2 Picard and season 4 of Discovery.
Okay, see, you were doing so well, and then you did that last thing.
Like it's season 4 your favorite of Discovery?
I wouldn't say it's my favorite.
Would you say it's your least favorite
of Discovery? Oh, man. If it is, I don't want to admit that.
Yeah, like, we go. There we go. Like we all love, like parents love their kids. They have a favorite. They don't want to say it. It's okay. You don't have to say it. I'm not going to make you say it on air, but it's there. It's there. Like,
you only let them know once they're adults after they're in therapy.
That's right.
Man, Paul, that you put me on maybe
on the spot. You guys are really just phasing each other back and forth tonight. Really, space battle is here on the pod.
You might be right. Like, I hate to say it. You might
You've
be
broken
right.
Clyde. You've broken Clyde.
I mean, I'm thinking about season 1 and then season 2 and then season 3. And then I really did like season 5 and was like, oh, y'all really need a season 6. If you make me choose, then yeah, you're right. Of the 5 seasons of Discovery, 4 is probably my least favorite.
It's okay. No one's mad. I don't know. I don't know that I'm willing to say that this so far is better than season 4, but it's an interesting discussion. Ask me at the end of the season. Exactly.
Come back to me.
We're just 4 episodes in. Like there is plenty of opportunity for a core breach. Plenty of opportunity for that. But
plenty of opportunity for percussive maintenance not to do the job.
Exactly.
So speaking of that, one of the things that I thought was interesting was the Jankum arc between the first 4 episodes, because he was really trying to be someone else. The whole thing about Rock is that Rock is having a great time because Rock is being Rock. Rock fits in, like, just naturally. That's
she's
working.
Doing it. Yeah,
she's doing it. Jangum's being successful, but he's trying really hard not to be who he's naturally is.
No. He is growing. Jankum is growing. He's going like, oh, look at this. I'm doing all the stuff I want to do. And the thing that I just have to do is stop being more Telluride.
And so I like the fact that in order to fix the ship, he had to use percussive maintenance. And then his hair came back, and I was like, good for him. Like, be you, man. Be you.
Bring the mohawk back.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for tonight. I think so next week we will cover episodes 5, 6, right? Yeah, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 4 more episodes for next week. I feel like the 4 was like a nice amount to talk about this evening. Sure. Yeah. Because the first episode was kind of a part 1 and part 2, really. So yeah, we'll continue with this cadence of 4. I think it makes sense because there's way more episodes because kids ep order, you can subscribe, rate, and review on Apple as well as on Spotify. You can visit us at StarTrekPod.co, where you can find links to everything, including our Patreon, where you can continue to get our episodes. And you can find us on Twitter, and I will probably try to get better about posting on our Instagram because I know Twitter is a hellscape. Anything else y'all want to plug or mention?
No, I think we spoke a lot Talk.
Yeah.
We talk.
We talk,
Pew
talk.
pew.
We talk.
I would say if you are interested in being part of the conversations and the communities that go on in our private Slack channel, please consider joining our Patreon. For just $2 an episode, you get access to our Slack channel where we hang out and we talk about all things Trek. So and non-Trek. Like
lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of chats about. We will see you all next week. Live long and prosper, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Until next time.